local people. Important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
How are you, David Dowsett?
And welcome. Thank you for joining us. On this edition of Byline, we tackle the big issue of our time, fixing the economy, with our own power panel of local experts. Dr. Tom Simpson is a former staffer for the Federal Reserve Board and currently an executive in residence at UNC Wilmington. Dr. Ron Copley is a financial analyst who also advises on investment issues. And Dr. Clay Moffitt is an assistant professor at finance and economics at UNCW. And thank you all for being here. This is such a huge issue. We were trying to figure out how we get our arms around it in one segment of the show. But let's kick it off with some brief comments, perhaps from each of you, on where you think the economy is at this point. Tom?
Well, we are slipping. We're continuing to slip. And at this point, we don't see much light at the end of the tunnel. In the end, the real problem is the real estate market, the residential real estate market. Until that stabilizes, then I don't think we're going to see much improvement in the economy.
So that's the culprit in your eyes?
That's the key factor.
Let's go to Clay. What do you think, Clay?
You know, I like what Tom just said, but I think in a sense it's also shifting now to the manufacturing, a lot of the international trade issues, even just small businesses I think are going to be greatly impacted by some of the legislation and all, which we'll obviously talk about a little later.
But do you think we're still headed down?
Oh yeah.
You do. Ron?
Same thing. I think we're in deep trouble. I think that this issue is as serious as anything we've seen since the Depression. Of course, that phrase has been used quite a bit. Unemployment in the state of North Carolina is now approaching 10%. On a national level, I wouldn't be surprised to see it hit 10% or possibly even more. We got a major problem.
When you know, it took us 2 years to figure out we were in a recession. When would we figure out that could we be in a mild depression? Are we headed towards that? How much further? What do you think, Tom?
Well, keep in mind that at the time of the Depression, unemployment reached 25%. So,
is that the measure?
Well, I think that term, depression, is used for the 1930s. So I think that's the benchmark that we'd be looking at if we're talking about a depression. And I don't think we're going to be anywhere close to really the kind of depths we reached during the Depression.
Maybe we'll have to come up with a new term for what we went through in this era.
What's the old adage? Recession is when your neighbor loses his job. Depression is when you lose yours.
Well, and I think if I just may add on this particular term, the term depression was a very commonly used term prior to the 1930s. And then the 30s were so traumatic that we basically retired that term, depression, and came up with the term recession to describe economic downturns, whereas previously they had been referred to as depressions. So, you know, we've been through quite a few recessions since the 1930s, and now we're into
Is this the worst recession since the Depression?
Absolutely. Yes. I think that we're in deflation right now. The United States is not seeing any inflation. I would like to see some inflation. I think that would be a signal that we may be turning the corner. Right now, Europe just recently has decreased their interest rates. Our interest rates are lower than the rest of the world for a reason, and that reason is we want to try to get people to spend. At this time, we're not seeing that.
All right, let's get a few thoughts talking about spending on the $787 billion stimulus package. It's known as the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. It's been passed. It's such a big thing to get your arms around. I'm going to ask you for something you like about it and something you don't like about it. And you're going to have trouble coming up with what you like about it, I know, because I know sort of some of your philosophical thoughts, but go ahead.
Yeah, what I like about it is, you know, yet to be seen. What I don't like about it is I think it's the greatest jobs-destroying legislation we've seen since Smoot-Hawley was passed.
Tom, what do you think?
Well, we need fiscal expansion. Monetary policy has basically run its course. It's done just about everything it can do to provide stimulation and to get the economy turned around. And it hasn't been enough, at least to turn things around in a way that we would like to see. So we need fiscal expansion. If I were designing a fiscal expansion bill of $787 billion, I would do it very differently. I'd rely more on tax reductions and permanent tax reductions because they have much more bang per buck.
Do you agree with Clay that it will destroy jobs?
No, I don't think on net. It may destroy in some sectors, but it's going to be more than offset by job creation in other sectors. But I'm not sure that these are permanent job creation. It's just an attempt to get some money in people's pockets so as to kind of turn this thing around and get it pointed in the right direction.
Another direction.
Let me explain what I mean by job destroying, if I may. In a nutshell, the bill, first of all, you have to look at it, the omnibus, and the budget together, because they really all three
and we're going to talk
pass.
about the omnibus bill, that
yeah.
$410 billion spending.
But in net sum, they first of all, they increase taxes on small businesses, on the poor, on corporations. They will kill manufacturing. The cap and cut items in terms of the environmental regulations will destroy manufacturing.
Ron, quick, something you like about it, something you don't like about it?
I like the idea that we're trying to create jobs. I mean, we've got to get spending started again. I don't know where the money is coming from. That really concerns me. Right now, China is a major buyer of U.S. treasuries. We have to depend on that. China's got its own problems. So I don't know that interest rates are going to go up. If this does not work, which I think there's a possibility that it won't, the government will be forced, in my opinion, to inflate, to pay back future debts with inflated dollars. So I see inflation as a very serious possibility at this point.
Okay, we're going to come back and talk more about fixing the economy with our power panel of local experts. When we come back, we're going to talk about our fast food mindset and when is a good time to, what is a good time frame for deciding if all of this works. Stay with us, we'll be right back.